Well, another cold day in the capital. It's the second day of July 2013. Good evening and welcome to KTN Prime. My name is James Smart.
I'm Linda Gutu. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's take a look at the top stories we have for you.
Telling them they will be ashamed. They should desist and use the proper route of engaging us.
The country is bigger than us. The rule of law must be given a chance.
Defying the court, strike continues as teachers' union split over strike.
We have not been able to establish the cause of death.
Tragic end to a love triangle. Tony Ogunda found dead in Upper Hill.
Sex work or men having sex with men are at a higher risk of contracting HIV compared to the general population.
From heterosexuals to homosexuals, the changing face of HIV infection in Kenya.
And in sports, pomp and color marks the return of the Rugby 7th World Cup team. All right, welcome once again to KTN Prime. Now, rival teachers' unions NAT and KUPPET were today's split of the ongoing teacher strike.
While the giant union NAT defied a court order to return to work and pushed on with their strike, KUPPET suspended its strike to pave way for negotiations.
Well, NAT is accusing the government of being dishonest over the legality of the 1997 deal. And as Tina reports, retired NAT Secretary General Francis Nganga resurfaced to try and set the record straight over the contentious deal.
The 8 a.m. 2nd of July deadline for teachers to report back to work came and went. Striking teachers remained unshaken, making good their threat to ignore court orders requiring them to resume teaching. From Nairobi to Kisumu, Trans Nzoia to Nakuru, the teachers' strike called by NAT was still in effect. But the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Teachers adopted a more conciliatory tone. A National Governing Council meeting resolved to suspend the strike.
The country is bigger than us. The rule of law must be given a chance.
NAT, which is vying to push on with the strike, is angered by government claims that a deal brokered in 1997 under Legal Notice 534, and which is the basis of their demands, does not exist. Two of the men said to have signed away the teachers' benefits, one-time firing NAT Secretary General Francis Nganga and former NAT Treasurer Peter Mutulu, returned to the NAT headquarters to set the record straight.
We never signed anything that was reducing what we said.
There is nobody who should say, any former union leader, even those who are dead, that they signed.
It was signed by Peter M. Mutulu.
On Monday, the government claimed that Nganga and Mutulu were among signatories who amended Legal Notice 534 of 1997, which was replaced by Legal Notice number 16 of 2003.
That illegal order was sneaked. We are not a party. We have not been a party to it.
NAT says it discovered Legal Notice 16 of 2003 last year. The notice does not cater for medical, commuter and housing allowances that the teachers are demanding. The controversy surrounding Legal Notice number 16 was forwarded to the Parliamentary Committee on Delegated Legislation.
And a ruling was given and determined by Parliament that the Legal Notice number 16 existed illegally.
As the legality and illegality of the 1997 deal persists, the Teachers Service Commission has ordered head teachers to report back to work and file reports of teachers who are missing from their workstations for purposes of disciplinary action. And just as it was with the court orders, teachers are not paying any attention to their employer. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Rita Tinina's story leads us to a big question tonight, and we're asking you, do you think the teachers should negotiate with the government?
Well, send your yes or no responses with a brief comment to the number 8040, and Lynn and I will sample your views during this live newscast and give you the poll results at the end of this bulletin.
Right, let's stay in that same line, and the Labour Minister Kazungu Kambi has called for a conciliation meeting between the government and the Kenya National Union of Teachers, NUT. Kambi, in a statement sent to newsrooms, said the move follows the industrial court order that was given yesterday that, among other raft of orders, asked both parties to meet and resolve the matter, reporting back to the court on the 15th of this month. Kambi also asks NUT in the letter to put in writing their proposals for negotiation. NUT Chairman Wilson Sosion, however, says the union has not received the letter, but when it will, members will make a decision on it, on whether to attend or not. The meeting has been slated for tomorrow, 2:30 p.m. at NSSF building.
All right, now to some budgetary issues, and the VAT Bill 2013 was tabled in Parliament this afternoon, and with it came fears of price hikes of basic commodities. Now, what effect will it have on the ordinary mwananchi and their budgets if it is passed into law? Wilkis Tanyabo went shopping to find out how the proposed 16% value-added tax is likely to affect you and me if it sails through.
The Kenyan consumer often marks the end of the month with a trip to the supermarket to purchase the very basic of items. Starting off at the food section, first into the basket goes maize flour for the all-important staple ugali. Wheat flour, milk, rice and bread will follow in short order. In the past, 1,000 shillings would have been enough to secure the very basic of commodities. Now it only covers a few food items, and soon the consumer may have to decide just which are the most important. This owing to the VAT bill that was tabled in Parliament on Tuesday. If it sails through, it means basic items including maize and wheat flour and other processed foodstuffs will now attract a 16% VAT charge. This would mean that a consumer who went to a supermarket with 1,000 shillings and just these 7 items on their shopping list would then have to dig deeper into his or her pocket, almost 150 shillings deeper to be exact. And that's not all. The VAT bill proposes, among other things, to slap a 16% tax on processed items, which include rice, wheat flour and maize flour. This essentially driving the cost of ugali further and further out of the ordinary Kenyan's reach. This is one of many spots across the city that caters for consumers who want to have a meal without breaking the bank. A plate of meat stew with a serving of chapati, rice or ugali costs 150 shillings. But with the prices of these staples set to rise, the traders have their eyes on the bottom line.
Tunalipanga ushuru zinaendanga wapi? Na tunalipa ushuru tena kwa VAT ni kama ushuru ingine tena.
Kikombe cha chai tunauza na 15 shillings na wakiongeza unga itabidi tuuze na 20 shillings. Na 20 shillings hakuna customer atakubali kunywa chai, hakuna mwenye atakula chapati kwa itabidi tufanye nini? Tupandishe tena chapati.
Other items to be affected if the VAT bill becomes law include agricultural inputs such as fertilizer and seeds. And for the first time, sanitary towels could also attract the tax. And this is why, as lawmakers retired to Parliament to debate the matter, Kenyans took to the streets to protest a move that could put more and more items further and further out of their reach. Wilkis Tanyabo, KTN in Nairobi.
Let's now look at a story that has got lots of people talking. A former GSU officer involved in a love triangle with former Cabinet Minister Raphael Tuju is dead. Tony Ogunda was found dead this morning in a house located in the Upper Hill area of Nairobi. Investigations into his death have been launched, and as Patrick Amimo reports, the deceased was at the center of a divorce case that had been filed by Tuju against his wife, Ruth Akinyi Wanjare, whom he accuses of cheating on him with the deceased.
A battery of journalists converged at a premise along Matumbato Road in Nairobi's Upper Hill after word went round that Tony Ogunda, a man involved in a love triangle with former Cabinet Minister Raphael Tuju, was suspected to have died. The main gate to the Kenya Hope Foundation offices remained closed and media could not access the compound. A woman was spotted inside kept off after she noticed presence of cameras. A door to this house, which you suspect could be a servant's quarter, was broken. Lawyer Cliff Ombeta rushed to the scene to ascertain the fate of his client.
Nobody's opening the gates. Is there information as to whether the body has been moved or what?
From Upper Hill, lawyer Cliff Ombeta came to the city mortuary to confirm whether the body found there was that of his client.
The body that I'm seeing on the floor, lying on the floor on a white cloth, is for Tony Ogunda, definitely my client.
Officers from Kilimani Police Station confirmed taking the body to city mortuary after a friend of the deceased, Cosmas Okotho Pondo, informed them of the death. Police say the deceased was found lying on a sofa set with a syringe and a drug container labeled Humalog.
We have not been able to establish the cause of death. He has no physical injuries. He had nothing to indicate that he had vomited or anything of the sort.
If at all there is any suspicion, and there is suspicion in this case, then the family has got a right to get their own pathologist to be present during the postmortem.
On 31st May this year, Tuju called Kilimani police to arrest Ogunda, whom he accused of trespassing in one of his properties. Ogunda claimed Tuju and his bodyguards assaulted him before calling the police. The case was still pending. When contacted over the death of his supposed love rival, Raphael Tuju, who is in South Africa, said he was saddened by Ogunda's death and urged the police to fully investigate the matter. Patrick Amimo, KTN.
All right, Kibwezi West Member of Parliament, Patrick Musimba, could become the first sitting MP to lose his seat in an election petition. This is after a vote recount ordered by Machakos High Court showed that Musimba lost to former Kibwezi MP Mandela in the March 4th election. The recount indicates Mandela triumphed against Musimba with a margin of 118 votes. The exercise, conducted by Deputy Registrar of the High Court, Jen Makungu, projected Ndile amassed 16,891 votes against Musimba's 16,733 votes. Musimba vied as an independent candidate, while Ndile rode on a wiper ticket. Majanja directed lawyers for both parties to make their submissions next before he delivers the ruling. Musimba had objected the vote recount, saying some 400 votes could not be traced. In the hearing of the petition, the returning officer for Kibwezi West admitted to recording different results in Form 35 and 36. Ndele filed the petition alongside third-placed candidate in the poll, Caroline Mwelu. The ruling on the case could either declare Ndele as the poll winner for candidate to order for a by-election in the constituency.
Let's stay with election matters, and the Jubilee Alliance has formally petitioned the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, challenging the eligibility of CORD's Makueni Senate contestant, Kathy Kilonzo. In a letter to IEBC Tribunal, the Alliance says Kathy's clearance is based on a forgery and falsehoods, maintaining that Kathy Kilonzo is not a registered voter, despite appearing in IEBC records. Samogina reports on Jubilee's war against Kathy's candidature in the Makueni by-election.
In a three-page letter to the IEBC Tribunal, the Jubilee Coalition punched holes on Kathy Kilonzo's clearance to vie for the Makueni Senate seat. The coalition claims Kathy's registration is fraudulent despite her clearance. According to IEBC's records, Kathy is registered in Langata constituency in Karen at NCC Social Hall. But the Jubilee Alliance claims there was no registration center called Karen. Equally, that Kathy's registration data was obtained from biometric voter register. Jubilee asserts that the said registration of Kathy Kilonzo was done in 2011, a time when BVR kits had not even been procured, since electronic voter registration began late in 2012.
Kwa kweli, siku ya leo mimi nimeingia nasari ya siasa. Nasari. Hii ndio siku yangu ya kwanza kuongea mbele ya umati mkubwa kama huu. Asanteni sana kwa kuja. Lakini mambo ya kisheria, mimi si wakili, mimi ni wakili mzuri tena sana. Sipitiki kisheria.
To further challenge Kathy's eligibility, Jubilee says she ended up with an acknowledgement slip from the same booklet with the former President Mwai Kibaki, whereas the booklet was exclusively reserved for the former president who registered in Nyeri. As a result, the alliance questions the validity of the slip.
Professor Kibudha Kibwana, His Excellency the Governor, alikuwa lecture wangu, University of Nairobi. Na akanipatia A. Nikiingia Senate, Makueni mtapata A.
The alliance is now demanding for the official registration details of Kathy Kilonzo from the Electoral Commission, stating that her clearance gives a full picture of brazen forgery, lies, intimidation, and breaches of public oaths. Meanwhile, reports indicate that Kathy Kilonzo's clearance saga is causing heat even within the Electoral Commission, with an apparent split among the IEBC officials. This as the Law Society of Kenya is mulling to strike Kathy from the role of advocates should she be found to have committed fraud in the registration saga. Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, the police have formed a committee today to spearhead and fast-track police reforms. The move is part of the reforms agenda in the law enforcement body and is expected to make recommendations for improving services offered by the police force. And as Aaron Ocheng reports, the police reforms have been dragging and no meaningful change has been seen since the formation of the National Police Service Commission.
The formation of the Police Reforms Committee is just another addition to the many police reforms initiatives that have been undertaken in the country. Whether or not this will bear any fruits in a force that continues to carry on with its faces of human rights abuses, corruption, extortion, among others, remains to be seen.
Kenyans are keenly watching to see if police reforms will involve scratching the surface or boldly undertaking real and meaningful changes.
The recent tussle between the Inspector General of Police David Kimayo and Chairman of the National Police Service Commission over who does what shows how difficult it may be to reform the law enforcement body in the country at a go.
There exists some war against reforms.
Although Kimayo and Kavuludi may want to hide their heads in the sand and pretend that all is well in the police force, it is playing out clearly that the powers of the Kavuludi Commission that include recruiting, posting, and promoting police officers is something that Kimayo is against and is hatching a plot to snatch this power from the commission. The opposition is watching keenly the happenings in the police.
We find it unacceptable that lives are being lost every single day, and all that the government does is to issue warnings of tough action from the safety of their offices in Nairobi, while the Inspector General demands more power.
And with rising insecurity in the country after the March general election, the last thing the public would want to hear is disagreement among the very people who are mandated to maintain law and order. Aaron Ocheng, KTN.
So tonight on our big question, we're focusing on the teachers' strike. KUPPET has suspended the strike to pave way for negotiations with the government. NAT maintains the government is being dishonest. That's why on our big question tonight, we're asking you, do you think the teachers should negotiate with the government?
Indeed. Send us your yes or no responses in the brief comments to the number 8040. Linda Dye will send for your views during this live newscast and give you that for results at the end of this bulletin. You're watching KTN Prime. Just ahead.
Spotlights on the East African community with a special focus on cross-border trade between Kenya and her neighbors. Also, we'll be telling you how real estate players are embracing rates in the stock market. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with KTN Prime.
Indeed, to some shocking statistics now, and the majority of all new HIV infections in the year 2011-2012 were from people in committed relationships.
Now, the National AIDS Control Council, however, says that in that same period, at-risk populations, which include injecting drug users, men having sex with men, and male and female sex workers, cumulatively accounted for 33% of new infections.
Well, NACC says this figure is worrying, and as Edith Kimani reports, majority of them do not seek proper testing and treatment because their infections are perceived to have come from activities deemed illegal.
Take a look.
While they are few and ostracized, the activities of men having sex with men, injecting drug users, and male and female sex workers could see the number of HIV infections increase in the country. According to the National AIDS and Control Council, if not provided with proper health care, these at-risk populations could have a domino effect on the national prevalence rate.
If we have to have a generation which is HIV-free, or reduce HIV completely from this country so that we have zero HIV in this country, we must target this population.
Those in committed and heterosexual relationships are not in the clear either. The NACC data from 2012 shows 44% of all new HIV infections, the highest percentage, are from those in long-term commitments and marriages.
So we have 33% of infections, new HIV infections, which are found outside heterosexual contact.
The national prevalence, according to the 2012 data, stands at 6.2%, a drop compared to the over 7% recorded in 2010. The AIDS Control Council, however, warns that if at-risk populations are left out of the HIV conversation, then achieving an HIV-free Kenyan generation could remain a pipe dream. Edith Kimani, KTN Prime.
Reality check there by Edith Kimani. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has called upon his Jubilee Coalition members of Parliament to embrace teamwork in the National Assembly in order to effectively drive the government legislative agenda. Speaking at the Alliance's parliamentary group meeting at State House, the President said that government success in delivering on the development agenda pledged to Kenyans will depend on teamwork, both in the legislative and executive arms of government. KTN Sophia Wanuna has the details.
Good morning.
It is almost 3 months since the Jubilee coalition took over power. The government is still settling down, with most appointments to key offices having been concluded recently. President Kenyatta today at a meeting with members of parliament from the Jubilee coalition at the State House urged them to embrace teamwork in the National Assembly in order to effectively drive the government's legislative agenda.
And whatever it is that we do, we must do as a team. Just like I said last time, we campaigned as a team. And it was that campaign and the unity of purpose that we showed as a team that I believe made Kenyans make the decisions that they made. Now what we have at this stage is only but to deliver to those Kenyans on those promises.
During the campaign period, the Jubilee team made several promises to Kenyans, promises that the president is keen on fulfilling. And despite the challenges facing the newly elected government, President Kenyatta believes a united front will help them achieve their goals. The PG meeting also appealed for an amicable resolution to the teachers' strike to enable learning to resume across the country. Members noted that an efficient education system was a key Jubilee Alliance promise. Sophia Wanuna, KTN.
All right, now the South African presidency, in its latest update on the health of the ailing icon, told its citizens to prepare for massive celebrations slated for 18th July, Mandela's birthday. Now, the statement also confirmed that Mandela is still in critical but stable condition. The vigil outside the Mediclinic Heart Hospital in Pretoria continues throughout the day and night as President pray for Mandela. Now, our reporter Asha Mwelu, who's in Johannesburg, has prepared a special report on South Africa's culture of preserving its history and heritage in museums.
Imagine if there was a museum in Kenya dedicated to the Mau Mau struggle, a museum that documents the fight for freedom during the colonial era in Kenya. Imagine if you could just walk into such a museum with your children or grandchildren, and just with that tour, they could learn about the history and heritage of the country. This is exactly what Johannesburg is all about, preserving the heritage of South Africa and its rich history. Deep in Soweto stands the Hector Peterson Museum. Here, the events of the 1976 Soweto uprising have been documented. During the uprising, hundreds of school children were gunned down for protesting against the introduction of Afrikaans, the language of the white man, as a medium of instruction in schools alongside English. While tourists are welcome in this museum, we are not allowed to film inside, as the museum is very strict on copyright laws.
The government which decided, they set up what we call Soweto Heritage Trust. I became a trustee. and we are sponsored by Standard Bank, which enable us to go and study about the preservation of heritage.
Mandela's house in Soweto was also transformed into a museum, and just a 15-minute drive away, you can learn all about the apartheid history at the Apartheid Museum.
I knew about the Mau Mau, I knew about Kenyatta, and I knew you got athletics. I mean, you got so many, you got such a beautiful country. I know about the Maasai in Kenya. And therefore now, to think they actually have to become of age, make something.
This constant exposure to their history and heritage has made young South Africans more aware of their past and has sparked their interest in the future of their country. Historians like Shadrach Motao say that Kenya can also learn from South Africa and preserve its own history and heritage in similar museums for future generations to learn from. Ashamwilu, KTN, Johannesburg.
Well, Ashamwilu there reporting from South Africa. He did, wishing and saying Mandela is actually coming on well.
Yeah, the whole world is actually praying for Mandela. So
absolutely. So massive celebrations on 18th of July.
For his birthday.
Yes.
You're watching KTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. We're taking a short break. Boni Tunya is up next with today's business news.
Sex work, or men having sex with men, are at a higher risk of contracting HIV compared to the general population than everybody else. And that means if we have to have a generation which is HIV-free or reduce HIV completely from this country so that we have zero HIV in this country, we must target this population.
Good evening, my name is Boni Tunya and this is KTN Business Today. The amendments of national laws by member states to conform to the needs of the East African Community Treaty still stand on the way of a seamless union. Now, KTN's Joseph Bonyo pitched camp at the EAC Ministry to find out what ails the community and brings us this report.
The words of these truck drivers are a manifestations of the challenges that continue to plague the East African community. Across the borders of the 5 member states, issues of grandstanding and laxity in putting in place the right infrastructure for common market protocol and by extension integration of the community still rears some ugly heads. According to Integration Secretary at the East African Community Ministry in Kenya, Barak Ndegwa, the problem largely lies with amendments of national laws to conform with those of the East.
We have national laws that were expected to have been reformed or amended to allow for the 4 freedoms.
Data provided by the ministry roughly indicates that of all the EAC member states, it is only Rwanda that is moving with speed to implement the requirements of the treaty. The other 4 member states have been lagging behind, with Tanzania and Uganda's performance still below par. On the other hand, Kenya, considered as the big brother of the community, is yet to show leadership.
We need to ourselves set the pace so that these other people can see that, oh, Kenya has gone ahead.
The principles of the East African Community was in summary envisaged to create a union with seamless borders to encourage trade between member states as well as take advantage of the 126 million people market.
We are lagging behind. That is the area of free movement of persons, free movement of workers, free movement of capital, free movement of services, right of establishment, and of course right of residence.
The full implementation of the protocol was expected to be in place by the year 2015, but that seems to be a tall order going by the current rate of progress. Joseph Bonyo, KTN Business Today.
Now, in an effort to track the progress made by border post managers on the government directive to ease cargo clearance, our Western Region reporter Fred Omulo visited the border post of Busia and files this report.
The Busia border post processes approximately 250 trucks ferrying goods into Uganda and another 150 bringing them into Kenya on a daily basis. As would be expected, various stakeholders have welcomed the President's directive and overall interest in trade efficiency, but a few logistical problems still linger.
The controversy that is surrounding the Kenya Roads Authority about the weighing method, because we don't know which method they're going to adapt.
So far, most police roadblocks from Nakuru to Busia via Kisumu have been removed, but one of the biggest challenges that importers and exporters face is dealing with almost 7 weigh bridges before their products reach their destinations.
Nilibeba nitoka Mombasa, nikapima Mariakani iko sawa, Mlolongo iko sawa, Gilgil iko sawa. Kufika hapa Busia, wanatuambia gari imepitisha. Niweke gari kando, wanataka kushika gari.
Experts estimate that the ongoing administrative trade reforms can cut the average transit time to 2 days while netting the economy 110 billion shillings in reduced costs and increased trade by 2015. But with the October launch of the single window clearance system championed through state agency KTN, these figures are expected to improve with cargo clearance at the entry and exit points taking less than a day.
With the president keen to enhance trade within the East African community, border officials are doing all that they can to ensure efficient service delivery. But inefficiencies within neighboring countries can conspire to kill this dream before it is even born. From the Busia border, I am Fred Omulo.
Now, in the next report by Philip Keitani, Housing Finance is betting on the formalization of the Real Estate Investment Trust to raise more funds to shore up the housing demand in the country. Take a look.
The growth of Kenya's property market has seen a number of players come in a bid to meet equal growth in demand. But with the Capital Markets Authority gazetting the Real Estate Investment Trust regulations, the appetite for pooling in the sector to meet the growing demands for housing units has gone a notch higher.
So with the advent of REITs, developers will be able to actually raise more equity from investors and thus rely less on debt or loans from financial institutions.
At the moment, CMA is pushing for the amendment of the law to give more tax incentive to developers, with proposals that capital gains made on selling rates expected to be listed at the Nairobi Securities Exchange to be exempted, like shares on the companies that are traded on the bourse.
The minimum value of initial assets for development REIT must be 100 million shillings. For an investment REIT must be 300 million shillings.
These tax incentives are expected to allow investors to diversify their holdings by buying multiple properties, even in smaller sizes. Philip Keitani, KTN Business Today.
Finally, here's a look at the numbers on the money market report.
Well, now time for KTN Sports Today. I am Nicholas Mudimba. The National Rugby Sevens team coach Mike Friday is here to stay. That was assurance from the Kenya Rugby Union chairman Mwangi Muthee moments after the team arrived from the World Cup in Moscow, where they finished 4th overall behind New Zealand, England and Fiji.
A heroic welcome it was for the National Rugby Sevens team on arrival from Moscow, Russia, where they reached the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup last weekend. But beside the pomp and color, speculations about the future of coach Mike Friday clouded the well-choreographed reception by the team sponsors Kenya Airways, KRE and other stakeholders. Mwangi Muthee, KRE chairman, confirmed that Friday is not going anywhere.
And we must work with a working plan. And Mike is deep inside our strategy. With a very small pool of rugby players, we can do wonders. With very basic of facilities, we are doing wonders.
The news was well received by the team members, who believe they are yet to conquer the world despite their exploits in Russia. And they said Friday holds the answer.
We're like a family, and if we lose one of us, well, that won't feel so well. So we're like happy that he's staying.
It's a major boost for us as players, and you can also see in him, the coach himself, he loves the game, he loves the team, and he'll do anything for the team.
Sponsors KQ gave the team a check of 900,000 shillings, where each player will receive 50,000 shillings. The team is also waiting for the promise of 100,000 shillings by the head of state, Uhuru Kenyatta, for reaching the semi-finals. It is a team that left the country with one mission, and true to their word, they achieved what they had purposed after finishing fourth in the Rugby World Cup in Russia. Victor Ogale, KTN at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Nairobi.
Thank you, Victor, and of course, congratulations to the Kenyan team. Now, back home, the building the local rugby starting next month. Moving on now, the 2013 London Marathon winner and Olympic silver medalist Priska Jepto has opted out of the World Championships in Moscow, Russia next month. That forced AK to name her replacement in Eunice Chepkurui. The women's team will be headed by reigning champion Edna Kiplagat and Lucy Kabu and Margaret Agai as the reserve. There are no changes in the men's team after the withdrawal of reigning champion Abel Kirui. AK settled on Bernard Koech, Michael Kipiego and Peter Some, who will be reserve team members. The men's team has been training at Eldoret University grounds, formerly Chapoilel. According to AK's David Okeo, the team starts residential camp in Iten next week on Monday under coaches Richard Meto and Abraham Kiplimo. Kenya's Harambee Stars started the training today at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, in preparation for the Confederation of the Southern Africa Football Association COSAFA Cup tournament slated for Zambia. Harambee Stars will be appearing in the COSAFA tournament for the first time, and this will act as a valuable chance for the coach Adelan Bushi further gauge his team as he continues to build up a team for the future. Kenya is in Group B of the tournament together with Lesotho, Botswana and Swaziland, and will open this campaign against Lesotho in Kitwe on 7th with hopes of being tournament winners. A rally crew from Meru is gearing up for the 61st edition of the Safari Rally due to this weekend in Kajiado. Job Njiru and co-driver Issa Amwari are finishing the rally and not winning it. The event that starts on Monday through Sunday will also double as the 5th round of the Kenya National Rally Championship. The Meru crew are among 69 drivers who will battle it out with the local aces and another foreign legion, all seeking to leave a mark in the larger Kajiado. The rally will be starting on Saturday and will end on Sunday.
The dream for everyone in the safari is to even finish the event, because it's always a very tough event. So first and foremost, we want to make sure that we finish. Then the next detail is how close to the top will we be, and that is our aspiration.
All right, so the teachers' strike and matters of negotiations continues developing, if you like, and a big question we asked you, if you think the teachers should negotiate with the government. That was the big question, and 64% of you did say that they do not support teachers to negotiate. Those are some of the responses. We'll have some of the responses from Twitter.
Yeah, Patrick says, this issue is becoming messy. I'm even confused on who is right. These legal notices, court rulings and all that. We need to understand what's going on. Kenneth says, the government should negotiate with teachers, listen to them and stop all this noise in the name of a strike. Let me see if I can get a final one here. Magut says, since when did you disobey your boss? Not unless you don't want that job anymore. Those are your opinions on whether or not you think the teachers should negotiate with the government. This is a story that we will continue focusing on for you all through this week.
Indeed. Thank you very much for your company. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. My name is James Smart.
I'm Linda. Go to sleep well.